So enigmatic and charismatic, gotta live static, gotta get at it, never pragmatic, cause we live tragic. I can't live average, to be alive's magic. Turn it up in the back cause I'm grabbing everything I want, get in my way and I'm stabbing. I'll be moving crowds till I'm 6 feet napping. They need another fix, hooked on like an addict. I got my eyes on the prize and it's changing lives. I wanna live till I die, make a difference, right? I wanna give those in need a reason to fight. I wanna live every day like it's my last night.
Studio.
I wanna change how we play the game, rearrange all the pieces till they say my name, push an agenda.
I am the Angry American, and we got a special treat for you, so I'm just going to get right into it. I got a guest. The first guest ever on the podcast. A 21-year-old military vet. Combat seasoned vet. A former federal police officer who stepped away because of the mandates.
Can you hear me?
So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Mr. Freedomstick. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like I was saying, you are the first guest ever on my podcast.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, so I feel very honored, and I did a lot of research on you, and I hope that we joke back and forth. I hope that the feds don't come knocking at my door after this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm pretty much an open book, brother. So
I want to ask you, because I watch a lot of your content,
okay.
and I think a lot of people do not know the difference, and I think it's a big problem. You know, you talk extensively about the Constitution and the fact that the United States government is a constitutional republic and not a democracy. And yet you hear all of these politicians say democracy, nonstop democracy, for the people that don't know, that don't get it. What is the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic?
Well, we can go one better. I mean, this is the greatest nation in the whole wide world. This is a constitutional republic, and the way that this is set up, it's for the people by the people. Okay, it's law of the land. This cool thing that we have going on here, this cool experiment we call the United States of America, is unlike any other nation in the world. It is it's phenomenal. The way that we set up our laws, checks and balances is unlike any other government in the world. And I think what politicians are trying to do is they're trying to normalize the word democracy. And I think we had to step away from that, because democracy is majority rules. That's not what this is about. The way that we set up this government, the way the forefathers set up this government, was to ensure that no matter what, each person that is a part of this great experiment has a voice. We tell the government what to do, not the other way around. Now, if you go to Canada, or you go to any of these other governments, yeah, they have constitutions, but they have democratic constitutions, way different than what we got going on here. We derive our civil liberties from our founding documents, and you know, like I said, it's for the people by the people. But yeah, we get into the weeds. Whenever politicians always start talking democracy, they want you to be blindsided to think that when they speak, whatever people agree with, whatever the majority agrees with, what they're talking about should go, and that's not the way it is. We tell them what to do.
And
that's the main difference.
Yeah, and that's perfect, because I think a lot of people think that these politicians have free reign. And the fact is, they work for us. They work for the people.
Well, I think they forgot that. I think that's the biggest problem that we see nowadays, is anyone that gets into politics, you have to ask yourself, why do you have to join a party? Why do you have to be molded? Why do you have to go through the pipeline to become a politician? I think a lot of politicians join or get into politics, probably for the right reason, because they want to make a difference. But throughout that process, they get infected. They get infected with this idea where they think they have the power.
Yeah.
They get to choose what happens in this country, but that's the furthest thing from the truth. That is why we are having the problems that we're having, especially with politicians, is they don't understand where they derive these powers from. And that's, we could filter that on into different facets of government. We could talk about law enforcement, being a cop. I don't know how many cops that worked alongside of where, these individuals think, because they got the badge and department certified them to be law enforcement officers, they derive their power from the government or local government or the city. No. Again, in a constitutional republic, you gain all of your power when you work for government. And people don't understand this. Government, especially when it comes to Fed law in the Constitution, government is everything. It's a definition, right? So if you're a school teacher, guess what? You're government. If you work at the post office, you're government. If you work for the city, picking up trash, you are the government, right? And again, I think people don't understand where they derive that power from. And like I said, that's the reason we have a lot of problems in law enforcement nowadays, because you have officers that'll be indoctrinated going through their academy. They'll learn the law, but at the end of the day, when they put that uniform on, they put that shiny new badge on, I think that they forget. They forget that they get the power from the people, right? They don't create their own power. We as a society give law enforcement officers the ability, the power to police us. And I think that is being lost nowadays in every facet of government.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely the mindset with the youth is that cops are bad and they're all going to power trip. We're here with Mr. Freedomstick. Tell them your credentials. Tell the listeners your credentials, because I've looked into your past. This guy knows what he's talking about.
I try to. Yeah. All right. So a little bit about me. I served in the military for 21 years, signed up at 18, retired at 39. Conducted operations all around the world, a couple combat tours in Iraq, stationed over in the Middle East for a long period of time. And then after that, changed up operations, conducted anti-narco operations against the cartel down in South America, and then fought against human trafficking. So you want to talk about evils of the world? I've seen it firsthand. Now, when I retired, I had to think about what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I was going to be a firefighter, man. Everyone loves a firefighter. So yeah. So what I did was my last year when I was in special programs down in San Diego, right before I retired, I decided to get certified as an EMT, get my clinical time out of the way. I got a degree in fire science, emergency management, and obviously I'm physically fit, even at my old age of 42 years old.
I got you by a year.
There you go, brother. And then we ended up moving out of California and we moved up here to Washington State. And something I noticed, man, even when we first moved up here, I was going to my kids' soccer games and I was bumping into dudes and like, everyone's a freaking firefighter up here. So I turned around and asked them, I said, hey, I took the fire exam, took the CPAT, I got my background, firefighting, aviation firefighting, structural firefighting. I got a degree. I have my time as an EMT. I'm certified. I got all the prerequisites and I submitted applications to all the local fire departments and I just got put on hiring lists, man, left and right. And that's the worst thing when all you want to do is serve and you get a thanks for swinging by.
Right.
And that's all I got for about six to 8 months. And I asked some of my friends that were in the fire service, I said, what am I doing wrong? And they said, dude, you're not doing anything wrong. Like you are on paper, you're freaking amazing. I said, well, what is it? And they said, you want to know the truth off the record? I was like, okay. And they told me, they said, man, you're 40 years old. And nobody's trying to pick up a firefighter that's especially a firefighter recruit that's 40 years old. You got 1 foot in the grave. So I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. I was really devastated, man, because that's all I ever wanted to do was serve. So I sat back and I said, what else can I do? What else can I do in service? I definitely couldn't take a desk job. and I definitely wanted to serve the great people of this nation, the great people in my community. So I turned around. I was like, okay, I got a journeyman license in federal corrections. My last tour in Iraq, I was a detainee guard, so I was in charge of prisoners of war. A lot of crazy stuff. I was going to go the the federal side of the house in regards to corrections, and I was like, nah, let's just be a cop.
Yeah.
So I ended up, yep.
So what agency? Because I looked up federal police. I guess I didn't understand that.
Let me just say, because it's new and I resigned not too long ago. Let me just say it's a big agency.
Okay.
So I'll just leave it at that. But it's on the federal side of law enforcement. So
Awesome. Awesome. Define this word for me because it's being used a lot, and I know I've had this label put on me by some bigger social media, and I'm using air quotes here, influencers,
okay.
terrorists.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah, terrorists.
um, yeah, that's the scariest thing, man. So let's back it up a little bit. We could talk about after the attacks in 9/11. This government created a scary piece of legislation called the Patriot Act. Me serving in the military and me supporting our government and our constitutionally protected rights. As soon as I saw that piece of legislation drop, I was freaking out. I read it, and it seems good on paper. And as long as they're pushing fear to the population, have you think that there's boogeymen all around the world that are trying to come here and do bad things to us? I mean, when you read this, you're like, yeah, if they come here, guess what? We'll just drop the Patriot Act on them and throw them in a hole for the rest of their lives without due process. And, you know, that'll be that. But you have to look at it this way. With everything that's going on, especially with our government and how tyrannical that they are becoming, that piece of legislation gets more dangerous by the day. And now you have Department of Homeland Security putting out bulletins basically stating they want to deem you a domestic terrorist. They want to label you at this point a domestic terrorist if you question the election, if you question the pandemic, if you question their official narrative. They are now using terms as domestic terrorists, and that goes directly in line with the Patriot Act. And that is what I am truly afraid of. I think, and again, these are my personal thoughts, that is the scariest piece of legislation we have to date, because that allows the government to circumvent your constitutionally protected rights. They could literally deem you a terrorist, come to your home. They could detain you under the Patriot Act without due process. They could throw you in a hole. There's no one phone call. You don't get a freaking lawyer. They could literally throw you away for the rest of your life. And I guarantee we're going to probably talk about the convoys. So I'm gonna slow down, slow my roll. This is not my podcast. I'm used to doing podcasts, but yeah.
No, like I said, man, I searched high and low for the first guest, and I stumbled upon you a few weeks ago, and I gotta, like I told you, outside of all this, I don't watch too many creators like consistently, patriots or so-called patriots or whatever the case may be, but I like to hear what you have to say. You have a very unique viewpoint, serving in the military, being a police officer, standing up for your beliefs. I don't know if you know too much about my story, but I ran a logistics company out here, and I was basically pushed out of my own business for starting the segment State Afraid, showing people what's wrong in supply chain, how things didn't make sense, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out somebody's doing this somewhere. This isn't government. This supersedes government. This is pretty big stuff, So yeah, man, I'm glad you're here, and I know you have the credentials, and I hope everybody listens to that Patriot Act. After you started to bring it up, I started to read it, and I'm taken back from what I can understand. Some of it's these these pieces of legislation. It's a lot of shuck and jive, but I gotta tell you, I'm a little unnerved.
You
So
should be. You should be, definitely, man. I mean, like I said, they had this piece of legislation ready to go. I want to say 30 days after the attacks. Now, a 400-page piece of legislation, the way that it was written, you could tell that they put some time in this, and it's kind of eerie that I had it ready to go within 30 days. Something like this would take legislators 6 months, a year to
yeah,
try to iron out, and they had it ready to go. And then on top of that, they didn't even wait till the smoke cleared. They
yeah.
didn't go to the people and tell them that, hey, we're thinking about building this. They basically used the fear from the attacks and turned around and said, well, we're the government and we're going to protect you. That's dangerous, man.
So
To me, it's totally dangerous.
so with that being said, because I don't do a lot of quote unquote conspiracy.
Oh, I hate that term. I fucking hate that term, dude.
Do you think that, because I do, but do you think that all of this, even going back to Clinton, and I'm trying to go in my notes here, he signed a piece of legislation, the Anti-Terrorism Death Penalty Act.
Correct.
It just seems like these are all dominoes that were set up and knocked down, kickstarting one after another. And I hate to use that term conspiracy, but what are your thoughts on this being a plan?
I mean, if you look at the dates that everything was set in motion, if you look at the timeline, one could only sit back and try to put pieces together and say, man, what did they know? What were they getting ready for? I mean, you talk about Clinton. I mean, Clinton was my first president when I served in the military. There wasn't too much going on. I mean, all that was really going on was that guy was getting blowies under the fucking table and lying to the nation. So for him to come out and put together a bill like that, it really just makes you think. And then now we see the Clintons. I mean, we see the Clintons at the forefront of so much like conspiracy in regards to how they operated within government. It's insane, man. You have to ask yourself too. I always talk about this when we're talking conspiracies. I hate that term. Why don't we just call it a theory? Why don't we call it a theory? Because here's the thing about this. The second that you drop conspiracy in front of that, it takes away from anything that individual is saying.
Yeah,
But we could all agree that regardless, it is a theory. Okay. There are some truths, there are some documented truths and facts. And throughout a theory, you would string it together and come up with your own conclusion. And the funny thing is the conclusion that people are drawing, it's a conglomerate. I mean, we have massive amounts of Americans that are saying the same thing. I don't know if it's too much of a conspiracy anymore, but it's dangerous, bro.
let me give you a phrase. You will own nothing and be happy.
Oh, wow.
What
Wow.
what does this mean to you? What do you think this organization truly represents?
So now you're quoting Schwab, dude. Now you're talking about the World Economic Forum. You're talking about this new agenda that they're going to try to rein in. They call it the Great Reset, where they're going to use issues all around the world to try to rein in a new form of government, a new form of control. And they are going to use a portion of it. They're going to try to, and you're going to see it here real soon. Inflation's a bitch, right? But inflation, and you know more than anyone dealing with the supply and stock system, how inflation and price gouging goes. I mean, this is systematic. It's not like they just, oops, it just happened overnight and you guys have to deal with it. I think they're systematically driving up prices. They're slowing down production on purpose. And what they're going to do is eventually it's going to be hard to get the things that you need. And then they're going to create an event in this nation that's going to shock all of us to the point where the only way to get us out of this inflation, they're gonna rein in a new digital age.
Yeah.
I've been following this probably for the last 2 years. You have certain people in politics and government that have been talking about central bank digital currencies. They've been talking about creating cryptocurrencies, wallets, digital IDs. It's all tied into that whole agenda, and it's not a conspiracy anymore.
No,
I'm sick and tired of hearing that. We're probably 10 for 10 on conspiracies in the last 20 years, boss.
absolutely, absolutely. I talk extensively about the Great Reset because I stumbled across it. I started being a time traveler on TikTok. That's how I got even started on all this.
Don't you like that? Don't you like that when you call it?
Man,
You know,
listen,
I've been calling this for years, and my buddies hit me up. And they're like, "Bro, like, let me jump in that time machine with you because you've been right about everything." And it's like, no, I listen. I use my critical thinking skills, and
yeah.
I don't let people think for me. You
I
know?
I was able to call Kamala Harris and Joe Biden
Oh yeah.
before they even announced that Biden was going to be the Democratic nominee. This, it's not, you're right, it's not a conspiracy. You know, this is systematic, it's out there. I'm dealing with it, well, at least I was, with the supply chain. I tell people, if you want to know what's going on in the world, follow Freight. Freight will always tell you. And I started to see things that just were off the beaten path, just not the norm.
Right.
So I started to bring people back, started to, how can I reach people? I'm going to be a time traveler, okay? I talk extensively about the Great Reset. Do you think the trucker convoy is that event? Or has the potential to be that event?
Oh wow, you're jumping right into it.
Yeah, I got to. I got
Okay.
to.
No, it's good. It's good. I think the biggest thing that ruffles my feathers over the last couple of weeks is this convoy talk, man. I mean, it's good. It's good in theory. Look at Canada. I mean, they started it. We have convoys all around the world, but at the end of the day, to be a tactician, to step back, you have to ask yourself, why are we seeing the same input? Why are we seeing truckers? Why are we seeing that is how people are standing up around the world? And it almost makes me think, again, it's systematic. We're talking about a convoy, and then we'll talk about this real quick because it really irks me, especially when it comes to tactics. I am very vocal about this, and you probably know this on social media. I'm a patriot through and through. I love and I will support and defend the Constitution, your freedoms, my freedoms, till my very last breath. That's not even a question. But when I get on social media, and I get it, you have Americans that are pissed off. Americans are pissed off seeing what's going on to other nations and other free people around the world, and they don't truly know how they can help. So the only thing they want to, the easiest thing to do is jump in a vehicle and drive to DC. But tactically, that is probably the dumbest shit that you can ever. It's more than that, right? All right, so let me break it down for you, because I know there's going to be a lot of people listening like, what the hell is this guy talking about? You have DC that obviously, and we could talk conspiracies all day long. When it came to January, there's videos and videos and videos about how we could connect federal agencies, the federal government, in regards to what happened in January. We have individuals that went in there. We're looking up at cameras, waiting for the magnetic doors to open. People are, you know what I'm saying? You had the Capitol Police opening barricades, letting people go in. But at the end of the day, it's insurrection.
Yeah.
Right. They allowed it. Right. And they pushed that narrative to have, people that don't think for themselves. Right. That are still ostriches. They got their heads still in the sand. They sit back and, they're patriotic, but at the end of the day, they're listening to their government. And they're not using their critical thinking skills. Here's what I'm saying. DC has been vacated. We've been seeing videos and information of that place being a ghost town for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
People are talking about how DC is preparing for something. Yes, they are starting to put all the fences back up. Me personally, as a tactician, number one, why do you think? And you have to look at everything from the holistic point of view, right? So if you break it down, DC is not a part of this country. I don't think, a lot of patriots, they get up and they want to bump their gums and they want to talk about freedom in America, but they don't understand the simplistic basics about how this nation is set up. Number one, DC, it's its own sovereign nation, brother. It is not part of the United States. That's the way it's set up. Okay. So you want me to support a whole bunch of pissed off Americans, whether we have the right to redress our grievances to our government, but you have to understand this country is a lot different than any other country in the world. Like I said, Washington, D.C., it's its own sovereign nation, basically. Okay. And now you're going to have hundreds of thousands of Americans roll in there. They could easily turn around and call it an invasion.
Absolutely.
They could use the full force of the military to deter this invasion. And then on top of that, use the Patriot Act and grab each and every person that's in there and throw them in a hole somewhere indefinitely.
Yeah.
What I fear is going to happen, and this is what I fear is going to happen. Number one, we saw play out up in Canada with the truckers up in Canada. I think that was kind of a dry run. We're seeing how the government is turning against the people. The news media, obviously, the mainstream media is corrupt as the governments around the world. They wanted you to believe up in Canada that the nicest people in the world were terrorizing, Ottawa.
Stealing food.
Oh yeah. No, you can't even make this garbage up. So you hear one thing on the mainstream media, then the cool thing about this application, we talk with TikTok and social media, is people like you and me, we see the videos, the stuff they don't show on the mainstream media, we see. All I saw was people out there dancing, people rejoicing, people coming together, people cleaning up the streets, like
passing out food to the homeless.
It's insane. Like Canadians, I don't know, I've operated with the Canadian military. I met a bunch of Canadians, and Canadians are some of the nicest freaking people in the world. And you managed to piss them off to the point where they're going to roll and try to stand up to government. And then you turn the narrative around on them. You make them look like freaking terrorists. But all I see is the law enforcement breaking windows, pulling people out of cars, walking around people's businesses that are locked up, taking videos of people. It's a police state.
Yeah. Here's the crazy thing. I've been saying it since the convoys started up there.
Right.
I believe that was a stand, not just for Canada, but for the world. Our government has overstepped. They overstepped using the guise of the pandemic to overstep.
No. Are you serious?
Listen, there are people out there that believe that this is just a natural occurrence. The hell with the fact that they called it 2 years prior. The hell with the fact that, Fauci has dirt all over him. He is.
Correct.
I talk to these people every day. They look at me like I have 3 eyes because I think for myself. I love my country. I had my attorney go, "You gotta be the craziest damn person I've ever met. You're a stubborn son of a bitch, and you essentially gave your company up for pennies on the dollar because of social media." And I try to tell him no. I did it because it's the right thing to do, to stand up.
Correct.
We're at a place right now. If it doesn't happen, it'll never happen.
Well, look at people like you and me, man. We were people of service, right? Up until about 5 months ago, man, I wasn't able to exercise my freedom of speech, even though I defended it for the last 25 years. Being a cop, you don't get to say what you want to say.
No, absolutely.
You can't. Being a cop, you can't go on a social media platform like this and spill your guts and say, this is what I believe. Being in the military, the same thing. I wasn't able to do that. And as soon as I exercised my right in regards to the mandate and how the government thought that they had the right to tell me what was going to go into my body and then dangle my service over my head, I just looked at them. I said, I have cleared all my cases. I'm good to go. I've never had one accusation against me. Never had anyone complain. Never had a complaint filed against me. I was officer of the month, officer of the year. I was out there doing it, and I left on my own accord. My chain of command was like, well, why don't you hold out? Why don't you wait? And I said, why? I know how this is going to go. And this is before the mandate. I'm telling you, I got ahead of this. And they said, the mandates are going to drop here real soon, but why don't you drop your religious exemption? And I said, why? And they were like, why not? And I said, okay, let's follow me on this one. We're all constitutional police officers, right? We're bound by the Constitution. We understand constitutional law. The problem that I have is it is not up to me to ask the government or to plead with the government or request the government to allow me the opportunity not to be a part of this experiment that they're pushing. It is on the government. It is on them to be able to show me proof that they have the Constitution backing them in regards to what they think they can do to me. And we've been proven left and right that this government, no matter what they say, doesn't have the right. Look at it this way. If they had the right, we'd all be vaccinated right now. I'm just letting you know. And, that was the biggest thing for me. And, my chain of command just kind of looked at me and said, what do you want to do? I said, well, two, in regards to these medical exemptions, in I'm forward thinking again. I'm a history buff. All I could think about is why would I sign a piece of paper stating my religious preferences, because I do, and I'm afforded that in the Constitution or Bill of Rights, First Amendment, freedom of religion. I don't have to redress my government in regards to why I believe that the government can't tell me to do something religiously. So now we have a whole bunch of people out there signing documents and stating their religious beliefs and pushing that off to a government. So let me get this straight. Now we have a government that is accepting all of these documents from millions and millions of Americans, stating that, number one, we don't go along with your agenda. We don't think that you have the right to do this. And guess what? This is my religious background. I remember another form of government in the history of mankind that made a list and kept that list in regards to people's religious
Dare you go there, sir? So, it's true.
Absolutely true. People could turn around and say, well, that's malarkey, or that's a conspiracy theory. Listen, I'm not stupid, and millions of Americans are not stupid. We have a tyrannical government at this point that tried to step over, their required power to try to force a medical experimental treatment on you, tried to dangle your positions and your jobs and your businesses over your head, and then realized in a court of law it was unconstitutional. And now the said government has all of your documentation, your names, your signed affidavits stating, I will not go along with your agenda. And on top of that, I'm religious. And let me go a little bit further on this, because I like diving in this and I try to explain from my experience, my background, being in the military. The last thing a government ever wants to do is have to fight individuals that are backed by religion. Okay. Warriors that have God or their form of God in their back, like, backing them. Yeah. Those are some of the hardest people that you could ever fight in the world. Case in point, look in Iraq. Yeah. All right. We dealt with people that fought with their religion in their pocket. And you're never going to change the mindset of those people. And fighting individuals like that, fighting an insurgency of individuals that have a mindset, especially based upon religion, those are some of the toughest, hardest people you're ever going to come across. And again, like I said, you're never going to be able to come in and change their mindset. So why would a tyrannical government want to know who's religious and who doesn't agree with their agenda? Why? Because if I was tyrannical, the first thing I would do is make a list, and I would understand that those people need to be the first to go.
Well, and that's what the Patriot Act kind of sums up, and that's what this thing that came out February 7th from Department of Homeland Security basically stating, hey, if you don't agree with us, anything that is, quote, misinformation, you are a domestic terrorist. So you are no longer able to have an opinion in this country. So let me ask you.
Yeah, sorry.
How deep does this go? You're clearly someone that does the research. I know I've done hours and hours, countless hours of research for the people that are, because I have a lot of listeners that are on the fence. They're like, You seem level-headed, you seem educated. Some of the stuff you talk is far out to us. For those people, how deep does this truly go?
Well, think about it like this. Think about the things that we've been talking about for the last 2 years, right? The same people that said that 2 years ago are actually hitting me up every day and they're worried and they're like, you were right. So I don't really let that truly affect me. Again, and we always talk about the red pill or taking a pill, kind of like the Matrix, waking up, this and that. It's insane. Once you realize and once you get on the frequency, right, there is no way you could break that, right? You see it everywhere. You literally see it in TV, you see it in the news, and people are going to turn on. The ones that are still asleep are going to be like, you're freaking nuts. But 6 months from now, when they're truly affected somewhat in their lives by the things you were talking about, they're going to call you up and say, you were right. So, like, what is it going to take? And we talk about how deep this goes. I don't even think we don't have a tape measure. We don't. I don't even think there's any way to measure how deep it goes because, I mean, it's like an onion, man. You keep peeling it back, and you think about all the conspiracies and all the corruption throughout government. It goes back probably to the inception of this nation. Like the things that possibly that this government has done against the people. I mean, you know, especially with this pandemic, right? So we could talk about that. All right. The biggest push right now is individuals trying to push, and they talk about misinformation. All I see at this point is misinformation being pushed by the government. You had Kamala Harris like go on live TV not too long ago and basically is trying to push the narrative of how and why you need to go out and take these injections from these companies that have been found criminally liable in federal court. I mean, Pfizer, for number one, you do research right now. Who paid out the biggest criminal fine in regards to a pharmaceutical company or a corporation in the world? It's Pfizer. And here's what people don't understand about that. To be found criminally liable, I'm not talking about just liable for your products. To be found criminally liable, to be charged criminally in a federal court, there's one major thing that a prosecutor has to provide in regards to that charge. What do you think it is? Intent. There we go. We probably talked about this earlier, but yes, you are a smart individual. You have to provide intent. So that means that this company had the intent to mislead and hurt people, and they were found liable criminally. And now you have the same company coming out here and telling you need to take their jabby jab.
Look at Moderna. Moderna's market cap before the pandemic, and now they're a different company. They're a force now. So many people made so much money. This has always been about money because money equates to power, which equates to control.
Correct.
I don't think people get it. Even the people that think they get it still don't get it. It takes a lot of research to go, holy shit, we are here, man. Like I thought maybe my grandkids would live this out, God forbid. But it's here, it's now, you know.
So we talk about these companies, right? And we talk about money and we talk about government, right? Obviously, we understand checks and balances within the government and how corrupt that is nowadays. People don't look at the pharmaceutical companies. People don't look at the politicians that invested prior to this pandemic, all the money that was freaking made off of it. The problem that we have in our society, especially here in America, is we've entrusted and given the power to individuals that profit off of us being sick. These are the same individuals that are entrusted to keep us healthy. Does that make any sense?
No.
Follow the bouncing ball again. They profit off of us being sick, but we have entrusted them with the power and the ability to keep us healthy and safe. All of these federal agencies, right? They tell you what to do, how to live a healthy life, A, B, C, and D, but then they turn around and they push these products, they push these narratives. I don't know if you've seen it. I mean, the FDA just got caught with their pants down. The director, one of the directors, senior executives in the FDA was caught by Veritas. Project Veritas is freaking a force, man. I love them. They went undercover and they had, I forgot the guy's name. It's a high-level executive. It could be like the director or the senior executive, but he basically said, he was talking about how the vaccines go through a process and through the FDA, how they're approved. And right off the bat, he was talking like he already knew they were going to be approved. And then he also talked about how these companies such as Moderna, Pfizer, what they do is they pay to have a panel that's attached to the FDA that approves their products. They pay these individuals. And this individual in the FDA is basically stating that the ones that are trying to push the pharmaceuticals and have this other separate federal entity, basically approve their products, they pay for the individuals to stay on these panels. Like, wake up. I mean, this is an agenda any way you look at it. Like, you don't even, it's not even, they're getting caught red-handed. In the problem is you have millions and millions of Americans that have choked down with it for so long. You have millions of Americans that probably took the first shot or the second shot. And the problem is once you take that shot and you sell yourself out that way, you will go along with the agenda. You'll literally turn around and be like, I don't care anymore. The crappy thing is, my wife, she's Australian. We have family in Australia. And I've seen what they're doing to the people over there. They are literally forcing injections over. They don't have a constitutional republic. They have a democracy. They have a parliament. They have a prime minister. They have their premiers, their governors. It's a different form of government. But guess what? They stripped them of their guns a long time ago during a possible false flag. And a lot of Australians will argue that fact. And look at them now. Now they can't go anywhere without checking in. They have to be injected with this stuff.
Yeah.
And in talking to my family at the beginning of this, they were all for standing up for their freedoms. And I'm going to tell you now, talking to my family that was basically forced to get an injection, now they're just like, they're dull. They're like, it is what it is. And that is so freaking sad, dude. It is so sad that we've come to this point in world history where governments are mass inoculating people with experimental like, we don't even like, look at it this way. Look at Pfizer, right? Pfizer goes in front of a federal district judge and basically says, we want to repress the clinical data that we've been receiving for the next 7 years. Why? This is the same agency that won't even put their additives of their product with their product so you can read it. It's called informed consent.
Yeah.
And that's the one problem we're going to have nowadays is people are being pushed to get this, but at the end of the day, you have the ability to ask for implied or informed consent. You have to tell me what the F is in this shit. And the government is not doing that. These companies are trying to hide it. And like I said, now you have one of the major companies that tried to get in federal court, tried to hide this information and ask them to give them the ability to hold on to this information for 70 years. Why? What, like,
to let this dust settle.
It's not even a conspiracy anymore. Like, everything's adding up. Everything's adding up in regards to the Great Reset. People just, and that's the thing too. People don't want to hear it. That's all it is. People want to go on with their normal day lives. And that's where we are in the history of our nation right now. We have people that obviously made good decisions. They were prospering. They have money in the bank. They don't want a disruption. Those are the people that ran out and got this. And those are the people that are like, as soon as the government's like, you can't fly here, you can't go on vacation, like, fuck that, I'll take it. I love my life. I want to enjoy my life. That's a problem.
I had this conversation when I told somebody in my circle that I was going to do this podcast. They were worried about the ramifications. They were worried, about our lives being encroached upon by any government agency. They said to me the exact thing, the same damn thing you just said. I just want to live my life, and when the shit happens, we'll deal with it then. Like,
but that's like the biggest farce ever. That's why we're dealing with the crap we're dealing with now, because nobody ever wanted to deal with it. Nobody ever wanted to stand up and ask questions. Nobody ever wanted to put their foot down in public and say, this is fucking bullshit. And again, you have a government that is trying to deem you a terrorist of the nation if you do. I mean, it's going to come to a head any way you look at it. I would have never came on social media the way that I am now, in building a podcast and using my voice. We're at a pivotal point, not just in American history, but history of the world, where individuals need to stand up, but they also need to use their critical thinking skills. Again, I was on social media earlier today, and I was listening to this lady, and you know how it is going on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You have certain individuals like you and me, right? That do have a voice. We do have a skin in the game, but we also do have credentials, right? You can't just come after me and say, well, if you don't agree with it, you're not a patriot. Like, what are you talking about, bro? I put a uniform on for the last 25 fucking years. I didn't see you serving with me. I didn't, when I was putting my ass on the line, I didn't see you in my unit. But I came across this lady. I'm not going to drop her out today because she obviously means well, but she's connected with amping people up for this convoy to DC. And she's just like, enough's enough. We need to go there. And I'm thinking to myself, like, educate yourself, lady. Educate yourself first. Number one, the federal government has limited power, and that is defined by the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Our federal government, their main job, people don't understand, our federal government, their main job is to protect the sovereignty of the nation. That is it. Their job is not to tell me what to put into my body. Their job is not to tell me who to hang out with, who to talk to, where I can fucking go. But the problem is we've allowed that rhetoric. We've allowed our federal government to use the mainstream media to push a narrative into having you believe that we need to be redressing our grievances with them. There's this cool thing called the 10th Amendment. That's a separation of power between federal government and state. If we have a problem with the way that this nation is operating, you need to be walking to your governor. You need to be taking your argument to your local government. You need to be taking it to your mayors. You need to be taking it to your local sheriffs, your school boards. The federal government is not shit. But the problem is everyone thinks, and this is from 50 or 60 years ago in regards to the civil rights movement, where everyone just wanted to march towards DC. You start locally first. The federal government, again, is limited in their powers to tell you what to do. And it's being proven every day in a court of law. Look at the Supreme Court rulings. Yeah. They thought they had the power to tell you, they had the right to have you injected with something. Wrong. Constitution stood up there, and even though we might have corruptible justices, guess what? Our Constitution is absolute. You could say what you want. You could be a corrupt as you want in DC. You could be as corrupt as you want as a politician with the checks and balances. You could even write a law, have it pass through our checks and balances. Our Constitution also states if there is a law enacted that was circumvented through the different branches, the way that it should be, and approved as an actual law, and that law goes against the Constitution, it is void. It is not a law. But people don't understand that. So back to my main point. We have this individual that is sitting there trying to amp people up on social media, like, yeah, you guys fucking go to DC. Why? What, like, tactically, that's the dumbest shit ever. You're going into a sovereign nation, number one, that has the power of the full military behind them. They know you're coming. It's not like a surprise. And I wouldn't doubt, just like Ottawa and just like a lot of these protests that we've seen, that there are federal agents and federal agencies that have actually infiltrated these groups of people. And I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't doubt that we have federal agencies that are ensuring that these convoys will meet the wickets of whatever false flag operation they got going on. You want me to believe that the most powerful government in the world, right, is not ready for these individuals to show up? This ain't fucking Canada, dude. This ain't Australia. This is America. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be televised, but that is one thing this government has been able to do. This government has been able to use the mainstream media and keep people in the darkness, keep us arguing between each other. They are good at that. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen is they're going to roll in two possibilities. And this is me being a tactician. This is not fact. This is not truth. This is just my own personal opinion from a tactical side of the house. You have a tyrannical government that knows a whole shitload of Americans are coming there. Why not make something happen and blame it on them? And that's all I'm going to say about that too. What if they show up, lock everything down, then you have all these corrupt politicians like, I don't know, Pelosi, right? Dan Crenshaw, all of these corrupt politicians are going to sit there. They're going to go on live TV and they're going to say, hey, all of you that are receiving Social Security checks, all of you guys that receive money from the federal government, we're sorry. We can't work.
Yeah.
They shut us down. The federal government shut down. Guess what's going to happen? That's going to be televised. And after the first 2 weeks, if you not receive, like me, it's going to hit me. I'm retired military, man. I receive a pension. I served my nation for 2 decades. I fulfilled my obligation. I get a pension. And you wait for millions of Americans to sit there that are watching it on TV and then have our corrupt government turn on it and blame why they're shutting down the government on them.
Yeah.
And then everyone back here is going to get pissed off, and it's going to change the narrative, right? All of these Americans are going to get mad that their way of life is being disrupted, right? All the people with their heads in the sand, their mindsets could be like, F these dudes. And then guess what? Now you have this big social civil divide in this nation. The government's throwing gasoline on it. And guess what they whip out of their back pocket? Ooh, the Patriot Act. And you're going to have a lot of Americans like we saw Jared, throw them in the hole. They're fucking terrorists. Like this government is excellent in regards to tactics and operations. The CIA, the NSA, they have a playbook for everything, dude. And you're going to tell me that they're not fucking ready for a whole bunch of truckers that have American flags on the back of their car. And again, I'm going back. I'm going on a rant, but
no, it
really kind of upset me when I came across this lady's page, and I wish I could take back some of the comments. I wasn't disrespectful to the point. I was just like, dude, you need to calm down, because you were stoking the flames. Like, I don't see you, even if you're jumping in one of these convoys, like, these people are being led by emotion right now. And that is the last thing you want to do in an operation. And
Absolutely.
if you don't think that this is warfare, if you don't think that the government looks at this as tactical warfare, like, they're not treating it, and they're not sitting down in mission briefings and, sitting behind closed doors and sitting with panels and talking about possible outcomes with officials, the military, National Guard, advisors. Don't fucking fool yourself. This is warfare to them. And all these truckers just roll in there because, hey, they want to support freedom the best way they know how.
And they saw it in Canada, so they're going to try to follow the model. And the outcome is probably going to be worse.
It's going to be 10 times worse, brother. I mean, we see right now in Ottawa, they cleared everything out.
Yeah.
They're charging these people, right? And again, I believe that there should be a certain point where you stand up, right? But the point I tried to make, and somebody tried to protect this lady. She obviously didn't know me, and she didn't like what I was saying. And she was just like, okay, hun, you could stay home then. We're going to go. And I'm thinking, like, first of all, I'm not your hun. Second of all, you don't know who you're talking to, because you want to talk to me about, like, you're some fucking freedom fighter because you jump in a fucking truck and you're driving to DC. You're talking to the wrong dude. Again, I've served this great nation my whole adult life. I've sacrificed so much for this nation. And to have this lady tell me, because she thinks jumping in a truck and driving to DC is, something higher than my service to my country. I obviously, and the funny thing is, so I said what I had to say. She obviously checked my account, came back, she apologized. She was like, well, I thank you for your service, but what do you think we should do? Quit fucking bumping your gums. How about that? Sit back, and you could only put so many tactics online. You can only tell people so much online. And the biggest thing I said is, if you're going to treat this like warfare, own the high ground, make your enemies come to you. Why the fuck would you run into the lion's den? Right? Sun Tzu says, the art of warfare, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you're going to be victorious. And the problem is, a lot of these individuals don't know who they're fucking dealing with. They know nothing about the federal government. They know nothing about federal law. They know nothing about legislation that is passed to protect the federal government once they get you. They are just jumping in a truck because it's the thing to do. They think that, it's going to be a great outcome when they're getting arrested on their little live feeds. But then what? What happens when you're sitting in a fucking hole somewhere and you don't have your phone anymore?
You're going to disappear. You have no due process. Like, I don't think... Actually,
and I'm not trying to laugh at this, but it's just like, the people that are the loudest have the least amount of experience in regards to dealing with the government. It's asinine.
These are the greatest minds in the world
Correct.
that work for the United States government.
Well, think about it. You don't think that in Langley right now they have a think tank? CIA is literally sitting in a basement somewhere. You don't think that we have AI technology to the point where they probably have some kind of supercomputer that you could, that you could drop inputs in and say, okay, what are the possible outcomes?
That's crazy, because I was just about to say that. I had a gentleman out of Colorado that, he showed me credentials. I believe he said I believe he was who he said he was. And he said that's what they do. They take all the input, they put it into these quantum computers, and they have every possible scenario within nanoseconds, man.
Well, think about it like this too. They don't just have the outcome; they get the recipe. They get the step-by-step ingredients and recipes. So not only would they have the outcome of a percentage of this is probably going to happen, the highest probability, what they do is they say, you have to meet these wickets. And that's why whenever something happens in the world or something happens in this nation in regards to life-changing events, especially around the government, you have to ask yourself, why do we only get information in short spurts? Right? So when you think about it, the Vegas, we'll talk about the Vegas incident with the shooting. Okay. Investigations, I get it. When you're live on the ground and you're investigating, you can only give out so much information, but it was just so weird on how they literally gave you enough information and then sat on it and waited, because you have to understand, whenever you conduct, let's just say it was a clandestine operation. We're going to go into the weeds. We're going to talk conspiracy theories. Let's just say it was a clandestine operation. Yeah. Okay. Good to go. Give me 1 second, boss.
You're good. You're good. Mr. Freedomstick is on the podcast, so all right.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
I had one of the kiddos. He wanted some hot cocoa. So yeah, let me get back to it. So we'll talk about the Vegas. The Vegas incident really kind of sits, especially in a law enforcement officer, and understand investigations and processing crime scenes. It didn't sit right with me. The narrative. And you'll see this in a lot of operations that the news pushes out. And again, we're talking conspiracy theories. This isn't factual data. This is what I believe. You'll see that the news only gives you so much. What they do is they sit, right? So whenever you conduct, let's just say it was a false flag. What you need to do is give people a narrative, and then you sit on it, because the problem is when you conduct operations in public, everyone has cell phones. Everyone saw something. What they're doing is they put on a narrative, and they wait about 24 to 48 hours to see if anyone will go against that narrative. Somebody might have a video, might say, no, that's bullshit. This guy was over here. What are you talking about here? And it's systematic. How we saw throughout that investigation, things started not adding up to the point where is it? It was 24/7 on the news. That was like the biggest news, wasn't it? Like they pushed it. It was on every freaking channel. The FBI was involved. All of these agencies were involved, and then nothing.
So let me ask you, since we're talking, you said that was a false flag. I get this.
No, I'm saying, all right, hold on a second. So I'm saying in theory, if it was a false flag, I'm not saying factual data that it is a false flag, because again, theories are theories until proven true. You're never going to have, and that's the cool thing about all of this. There always is going to be that 1%, 2%, 3% of not having the full facts to the point where you can say this is irrefutably an operation that was conducted by certain agencies to try to strip you of your constitutionally protected rights to own firearms, or to rein in a new piece of legislation to strip you of the ability to defend yourself, because we have crazies running around. We have crazies running around with guns, and, especially in Washington State, they're trying to push a legislation right now to ban 30-round magazines. Like, is this what we're worried about? You still have a state of emergency going on. The governor's still preaching about this pandemic, but this is all we're talking about is guns. Like,
well, you hit the nail on the head. I have a list of questions from viewers. You know, I went out and asked, hey, if you want to ask anything, you know, get back to me, and I'm gonna make sure it gets asked.
Roger.
100, at least 100.
Okay.
Are they coming for our guns? I mean, people are worried about it. It's been talked about for years and years, but we're at a different place in our history. We've never been here before. So, you know, again, this is just your opinion,
Yep.
but it's a well-educated opinion and I believe
Okay.
so.
So your question at this point is, you're asking me, do I believe that they're coming for our guns?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. All right. So buckle up. So here's the deal with this. When you have a federal agency that has been created, and the inception of this agency is to try to strip you of your constitutionally protected rights, and we're talking the ATF, or like Biden would call it, the AFT. When you have an agency out there that strictly is trying to limit your access to constitutionally protected rights, that's an issue. When you have politicians that all they do is talk about on their platforms limiting guns, they want to talk about gun violence 24/7. The news media 24/7, they want to talk about one kind of platform of weapon. You know, the reason that they only go after one weapon, think about it like this: if they went after so many different styles of weapons, we would call bullshit right off the bat. But what'll happen is, and what they're hoping is, individuals will just give up the AR-15 platform. And what people don't understand is, once you give that up, once you allow that, that's a break in our constitutionally protected rights, Second Amendment. The government doesn't have the ability to do that. And a lot of laws out there technically go against the Constitution. But once you give the government the right to circumvent one type of weapon, where does it stop?
It doesn't.
Right? It doesn't. And that's why they don't full force come out after every weapon out there. You know, you could probably look at the stats every year. I guarantee there are probably more people that are killed by hammers than handguns or rifles or AR-15s. I think I saw a stat in like 2018 I looked at. There was like more people that were killed with a hammer than an AR-15, but they're coming after an AR-15 platform. It's just, and it's a scary weapon. That's what they deem it. It's a weapon of terror. Okay. My 308 Savage, my bolt action, number one is a 7.62 round. The velocity and the impact of that round alone is more dangerous than that AR-15.
Well, the weapon of terror I've always seen and been accustomed to is the AK. I don't know where the AR-15 came about, whether it was a shooting, a school shooting, mass shooting, or wherever. But, you know, I happen to be fond of it myself. But I want to know, is that the biggest deterrent for the government not just seizing power? Is the fact that Americans have the right, and a good amount do own firearms? Or, you know, is that we're going to strip that away just because, you know, a country that isn't armed can't defend itself? I mean,
look at Australia, man. Just like I talked earlier, there was an event, and people in Australia call that a false flag event that the government created, pushed in the news media, just strip people their constitutionally protected rights to own personal firearms. They took it. They took all their guns, and look, now the government is like, no, you're going to take this shit. You're going to do what the fuck we tell you, and they can't fight back. So in regards to that question, do I believe this? Absolute power corrupts, man. Anyway, look at it. When the government starts talking about taking away your ability to own personal self-defense weapons, you should always take heed to that. And a lot of people are like, there are so many different guns out there, and, you know, I don't mind if they take this one off the market. No. The Second Amendment, it's in black and white. Shall not be infringed, right? So any way you look at it, and look at it this way: if they are able to infect that amendment, if they're able to infect the Constitution, if they're able to strip you of the Second Amendment, do you really think, if you don't have guns, do you really think you have the right to freedom of speech or freedom of religion right now? Do you really think that?
no, I mean, I don't think we have the right to freedom of speech right now anyway.
You do. I'm going to tell you straight up. Just because we're on social media platforms and they are doxing us left and right, I can go out in public and say what the fuck I want to say. You know why? Because the government hasn't circumvented that right yet. And you know why they haven't? It's because we have the means to stand up. Okay. Number one, black and white, our constitutionally protected rights. The government will be found unjust. And that's why they need a catalyst. They need an event to happen so that they could scare everyone into thinking certain individuals that own these weapons, certain individuals here, they're bad. And, portion of your nation right here relies on the government to take care of them. I'm not even making that up, and I'm not even trying to be funny. I have people every day that hit me up and they ask me, hey, I know your experience in survival. Number one, I'm putting together a workshop coming up here on the 12th of March, 2022. I use my experience to put together a workshop in regards to basic survival, and something that I'm noticing is my platform. I'm getting hit up every day, like hundreds of DMs of people like, hey, I know about your background. I'm really scared right now. I haven't put together a plan. I'm trying to help people put together emergency action plans, help them prepare the do's and don'ts, what you should buy, what you should stay away from. Here's some tactics. I can't keep up with that stuff. And something that I'm realizing is more and more than not, Americans have relied on this government to take care of themselves. Nobody's ready. So if they pop the switch tomorrow, I'm going to tell you, the same people that are talking patriotism and freedom that are not prepared are going to be groveling at the government's footsteps.
Absolutely.
And they're going to say, help me, give me food. They're going to go to FEMA and they're going to say, we paid our taxes. And it's ridiculous where we've come.
The viewpoint outside the United States, everyone I talk to, is that Americans are lazy. You think that's part of it? That people are just lazy? We talked earlier about, hey, just leave me alone, let me live my life. Do you think people are lazy here? Do you think we know certain generations are entitled. Are people lazy? And is that the issue?
So let me get this straight. You're asking me, do I believe that Americans are lazy?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a pretty complex question. And I know it's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. Again, through my experience, and this is just me, I've lived all around this world, man. I lived in the Middle East. I've lived outside of this country. I've come into contact with so many different backgrounds, so many different facets of life. So many different cultures, man. I speak a bunch of different languages. And something that I noticed speaking to individuals that are non-American is, that is their general consensus. They ask, why we think we're the shit in the world. And two, once you go outside the United States and you see how other people live, and you live in countries that don't have running water, don't have government that takes care of sewage and trash, the ability to have properly cooked food 24/7, stuff like that, and infrastructure. When you come back here and you're able to flush the toilet and you're able to take a shower, you do feel a little bad because we are blessed. Now, I'm not going to say Americans are lazy. I'm going to say we are blessed, and we do take what we have for granted in this nation, because a majority of this is a nation of immigrants. Okay. Families from all over the world have flocked to America to enjoy the freedoms that we have here. But I think through generation, people lose that. People lose where they came from and how hard the struggle was. We're at the point now where all you have to do is get up in the morning. If you're out of something, you could jump on your phone. You could punch in to Amazon. You can have something delivered in like 20 minutes from your local store. We are blessed, and with blessing and technology, I would say that we do take it for granted. I'm not going to say Americans are lazy, but I do think that, individuals that live outside this nation, they work harder just to try to have less. So, I mean, one key point. So one key point with this, my son, and I do this a lot, and I try to teach my kids right. So my son will sit up in the bathroom. He's 8 years old, and he sits there brushing his teeth. He has the water going. and I'll hear it going. It really just makes me upset. Not because I care. I have a deep well on my property. I don't pay for water. So it has nothing to do with that. But I literally run upstairs and be like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm brushing my teeth. I'm like, do you need the water running the whole time? He's like, no. I said, then turn it off. He's like, okay. And I was like, let me tell you something, kid. You are blessed to live in a nation where you have clean, tappable water at your fingertips. Don't ever forget that. There are people that all of that water that just went in that drain for the last 2 minutes, people would die to drink, and you have it at your fingertips. So, yeah, we are blessed as Americans. We've built this nation into something great, and it's being corrupted right now. And the ability and to have electronics to think, and that's another problem we're running into. It's not just being lazy too, it's having electronics and information at your fingertips. And this is probably the biggest problem that we have in this nation alone. And this is why your government can throw a veil over your face and they can control you with a narrative, because a majority of this nation does not critically think. A majority of this nation is so complacent in regards to having media and information at their fingertips that if you ask somebody a question, instead of them thinking about it, instead of them taking in inputs and then coming up with a solution, providing output, what they'll do is first thing to do is go to their phone, they Google it.
Yeah.
And then they'll tell you, hey, look at this. This is what this says. I want to know what you say. And that is the problem. We don't have people that critically think here. And that's why we're having the issues we have. A case in point, and then I'm going to kill it here and I'll let you ask your next question. But case in point, on social media, whenever I come across some big star or something like this, Joe Rogan was recently in the news, right? So we have Joe Rogan standing up against the cancel culture because he had certain doctors on that are destroying this narrative. Destroying. So they went after him, right? And with the cancel culture coming back after him, he kind of stood his ground. Then I have people on social media like, Joe Rogan for president. I'm like, are you fucking stupid? You laugh. I'm sick and tired of hearing this shit. What happens is we have individuals that are in Hollywood. We have celebrities, and the second they get doxxed and they try to stand up to the mainstream wokeism, then you have all these people coming out. We need to make him president. I don't want fucking Joe Rogan as a president. Like, this is the problem that we have. You don't use your critical thinking skills. You run off of emotion, and you think just because this guy's standing up for himself, he's going to stand up for you. Like, what qualifies him to be? That's the problem we run into nowadays, is look at the individuals we have in office. Are they even qualified? It's just, it boggles my freaking mind. Dude.
Is Biden in control?
Oh, shit. Is that a question?
Well, I have it written down here, and we're segueing right into it with the AFT. Is Biden in control?
All right. So if you're asking me, do I believe Biden's in control? I think electronically, I think in front of a camera, I think in front of the masses, he is. I don't think that he's there. I don't think that he has the ability to use critical thinking skills. I think he's reading a script. I think that whenever he talks, he runs out of a room and doesn't want to answer anyone.
Come on, man.
So if you ask me if I think he's in control off those aspects, I don't know. What do you think? I'm going to throw a question at you. With me saying that, what do you think?
I think he's a complete tool. And I really think that, I've never disrespected the presidency my whole entire life. I didn't vote for said individuals, but I would never go after the president. I honor, my country. I'm not going to sit here and trash the guy that's, I want to say blessed and cursed at the same time with running the country, but this man, this is bad. This is extraordinarily bad.
Let me jump in there real quick. So let me say one thing to all the listeners out there, and hopefully you guys are writing this down. Hopefully you guys got a piece of paper. You can be a patriot and not support the government.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying that. So I'm going to say that again. You can be a patriot and not support the government. So.
Well, the reason I asked the question before, I know it's kind of an off-the-wall question, this false flag that's coming, I'm using my critical thinking skills.
Okay.
It's going to take away those things that we take for granted: the water, the electricity, the calm. I mean, it's a tactical mindset, right? You're going to take away communications. Boom, that's done. You're definitely going to take away the ability to feed and hydrate yourself. I mean, this is just common sense. When that happens, this place is going to go fucking crazy. Unlike anything we've ever seen. All these people that are dependent on the government, dependent on technology, that don't know how to tie their shoes. I mean, they don't know how to write cursive, you know? The shit is going to go down, and I've been trying to prep people for 2 years, and I'm the crazy one. I'm the tinfoil hat guy, and the bottom line is, man, I've been overwhelmingly right, you know? So
and this is, I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is where you need to cut your losses, bro. When you deal with certain people, if they don't see it by now, you're actually you're allowing them into your emergency action plan. If you have a plan during any kind of emergency and you've been trying to wake people up and they are not listening, and you've been pushing to try to get them to prep for something, you leave the door open. Now they have that information on you. That's why I tell people, in regards to building a plan, keep your social circle small. Don't ever let anyone know about what you got going on, what you have. You could always go out there and help others, but never talk about your plan unless they're directly involved in that plan. Now we're talking about people don't like this, but the foxtrot false flag, right? It is a tactic that government entities around the world use. Clandestine operations. I mean, we see it all over the place. We sent special forces into different countries where we're not supposed to be and trained up their people to overthrow governments. I mean, there's nothing different here. But looking at the situation, I think right around the corner, it's going to be something big. I don't think that right off the bat. So let me back it up a little bit. Everything has fallen into play. We got Biden, before he took office, has been talking about Russia forever. And he, I watched a video of him earlier today, way back in the day. And he was just like, if I'm the president, I'm going to stand up to Russia. Like, what's the hard on with Russia? But when you think about it, if this was a step-by-step play in hitting every wicket to get to a certain point, you have to ask yourself, why is everything happening in Ukraine right now? Why are they trying to push Russia to the brink? And I'll tell you, these are my own personal beliefs. Again, this is not factual data. This is what I believe by using my critical thinking skills. We have a government that cares more about protecting Ukraine than protecting and doing their job to protect the borders of this nation. He could have easily taken those troops and put them at our border to secure a nation, but he allowed for an invasion. Now we're taking these troops and allowing them to be under control of a gang called the NATO. NATO is a group of countries that come together and basically say, if one of you gets fucked with by another country that's not a part of NATO, guess what? We'll all show up and we'll beat their asses. Trump did the right thing. When he took office, he pulled us out of that gang. And I'm going to tell you, operating in the military, I did operate under NATO, and I don't like the fact that we have an organization that could give me orders. I was a United States sailor, soldier, whatever you want to call me, right? I was an armed service member, active duty for the United States government. I had to take fucking orders for somebody else, from admirals and generals that have nothing to do with our policies. They weren't American, but we operate over there and they use our fighting might of our forces to do their fucking bidding. It's corrupt as shit. So Trump pulled us out. We got, as soon as Biden took the office, what did he do? The first thing he did was put us right back into this fucking gang. So now we have this gang that we're a part of again. Woohoo. And now you have an administration that is linked to corruption within said country of Ukraine. It's well documented. You could look at a lot of our politicians, our corrupt politicians, their next of kin, have high level positions in energy companies over there.
Can we just go ahead and say it? Can we put it? Can we put a name on it, or should we not?
I'm not going to put a name. I'm drawing it out for a conclusion. But so now, so now we have interest over there. At least the corruption, the swamp in DC has interest to protect that nation. We have the corrupt Ukrainian government asked for help. They're also turning around saying, "Hey, we want to join this gang that you're in, this cool NATO gang." And if you understand anything about NATO, NATO will not let you join their ranks unless you give up sovereign soil in your country. So Ukraine stepped back and said, "Oh shit, I know the people are probably not going to go for this because a lot of Ukrainians freaking hate NATO because of their operations in the Baltic, in the area, in the region, and that they know how corrupt that organization is." Their government said, "Okay, talk to NATO. We'll let you build bases, and guess where? We'll let you build your bases at the border of Ukraine and Russia." Now, if I was Putin, and I hated the corrupt Ukrainian government, I hated this administration in the White House, I hated this gang, and I saw the people on my borders, the individuals I hate on my borders, trying to get jumped into a gang, and then me hearing about them allowing this gang to build their bases right at my border, you better believe I'm going to stack my fucking troops over there. So again, we have the mainstream media, we have poopy pants in the White House coming on every, talking his hard talk about fucking Russia. And they're controlling the narrative, and they're going to have you believe that Russia is going to invade. I'm going to tell you straight up, if Russia wanted to invade, they would have done it by now.
Oh yeah.
They are not the aggressors that this administration want. And, you can quote me on this. We're going to see how this plays out. They're going to poke the bear, and then Russia's going to have to do something. But look at it this way. That's what they want. So now you have Russia. Let's go back to the conspiracy of why they tried to link Putin with Trump the whole time. Let's just say, for conspiracy sake, Trump had a meeting with Putin before he left office. He knew that the election was going to be stolen. He knew that all this stuff was going to happen. He got wind of it, whatever. This is conspiracy, not factual data. This is just me talking. This is me and Joe talking. And Trump sat down with Putin. Putin made an agreement and said, "Hey, if they relieve you of office and they actually do steal the election, this is what I'll do for you. I'm a superpower. We have power. I will help defend your country if something happens." Okay. Now he knows that the United Nations wants in. He knows that the United Nations wants in every country. One world government. I mean, this is the freaking plan. You want to talk about the Great Reset? You want to talk about the Green New Deal, communism, socialism? It's all a part of this whole freaking thing to collapse governments and make a one world government, right? So now you got this guy, everything came to fruition. Putin's sitting back like, what the fuck? He was right. And now we have this administration that's trying to put sanctions now on Russia, trying to choke them the F out into getting into a fight. And there's going to be conflict. Whenever you put sanctions on a country, eventually supplies are going to run out. You're going to choke them out, and you're going to force them against the wall to where they have to punch you in the fucking face to have you stop. So what's going to happen is we have our troops over there now. So we have massive amount of troops over there. We got the guy come on TV today talking about he's going to authorize to send more troops, A, B, C, and D. So now we have our fighting force away from our shores, not protecting our own nation. We have a cannibalized Pacific and Atlantic fleet, the Navy. We have combatant ships going out there. We have Marines going out there. Everything is dispatched out. Who's protecting our shores? Number one, we have an open border right now that nobody gives two fucks about. It's being proven that hundreds of thousands of people are being bussed in and dropped strategically around the nation. I'll get to that in a second. Most of them are, average. Their average ages are fighting age males. There's no huge families coming in. They're just dudes. And they're being shuttled around in the middle of the night. So now we have an altercation about to break out, at the border of Ukraine. Russia's going to get locked up in a confrontation. And that's exactly what they want, because if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you could win your battles. If they knew that they were compromised, they know that the information got out there that Russia was going to try to help the United States out just in case some kind of civil disturbance. You need to lock Russia up. You need to have them worry about their own country. And then guess what? Our military is away from our shores. Civil disturbance and a civil disorder breaks out here. Martial law is declared. Federal government turns on the people. And then magically you're going to see what? You're going to see blue hats. You're going to see white and blue vehicles driving around the
United
United
Nations. Yeah.
Correct. You're going to see them pop up everywhere. And I'm going to tell you, a majority of this nation is going to sit back and they're going to be like, where the fuck did these people come from? Well, those that are critically thinking and those that understand tactics, I would totally understand how feasible it would be to all these individuals that are coming in right now under the cover of darkness that are coming in and being moved around by this administration. Who do you think they are? This is all pre-staged, brother.
Well, listen, just for the listeners, the UN, they're not going to answer to no one. You know, they're going. They watch. They walk to their own drumbeat. You know, I've seen it firsthand. These people will go in a place and say, no, this is how this shit's going to go.
Correct.
You know?
Correct. So look at it this way. You have to ask yourself during the Obama administration why he signed an executive order that basically, this is unconstitutional, but he signed an order that basically circumvents our constitutional protected rights with the Second Amendment and basically states that in case of a major civil disturbance, in the United Nations it's called the UN Small Arms Treaty, you can look it up, that the United Nations, under his authorization, the presidency of the United States of America, they have the authorization to come in here during any major civil disturbance and collect our weapons. Are you fucking kidding me? And again, people don't read this shit. People don't read this shit. It's all adding up to this. So now I'm going to tell you, when this catalyst, this event happens in the nation's capital, if they meet all their wickets, that's what they're going to pull, man. And then you're going to have the United Nations here. And then you're going to have this nation split. Because all those people that sat back and they said, well, I just want to live my lives. What do you think they're going to do when UN MRAPs are rolling down the road?
They're going to succumb.
They're going to be like, yeah, those guys over there, they're patriots. You're going to leave us alone, right? And they're going to be like, yeah, we're just looking for anyone that's previous law enforcement, military, any kind of agitators in the area. Do you know anyone that has what? And it's going to turn into 1930s Germany all over again, all at the force of the UN. But I'm going to tell you one thing. One thing that they should really be worried about is this nation, this government has created millions and millions of tactically trained, battle-hardened combat veterans over the last 2 decades. We're talking millions. And I've trained and I've operated with UN, and those guys are a fucking joke. Okay. I'm telling you straight up. They are not the force that you freaking think they are. So.
No, I'm just saying that they're not going to listen to whomever is barking orders locally, or like I've seen video after video and I'm like, who the fuck are these, like, who do these people think they are? But you know, they think that,
they don't understand international law as well. I mean, we have so many cases that UN soldiers, UN operations were conducting crimes against humanity all around the freaking world. I mean, there's no checks and balances with these guys. They will literally go in, and you have United Nations troops that come from like third world countries that don't understand your private rights. They don't understand anything. If you stand up to them, they'll do whatever. But you bring up a good point. You know, who's gonna be in control? Who do you think's in control? Now, if we want to talk about the conspiracy of the potato that's in freaking the White House right now, who do you think's giving him orders? I guarantee the same person that's giving him orders is going to be controlling the UN. And who do you think that is? Look at the UN. If you look at who's on certain councils, we have, and I'm going to say the C word, China, right? So we have China that is literally on the Council of Human, what is it? Basically, it's a council that's put together to battle crimes against humanity in regards to UN. And we have fucking China. We have China as the leader, the biggest country that is freaking extinguishing any kind of freedom amongst their constituents. This is a country that literally has been heading up a campaign against Christians and getting rid of them. And they are on the main council. Like, you can't even make this shit up. So,
thoughts on Afghanistan?
Yeah.
So I just wrote the name of I didn't write the username, but this guy's name is Charles. Thoughts on Afghanistan? I'm assuming he means the withdrawal.
I think Afghanistan was sloppy. I think this administration knew exactly, the generals that were in charge of the operation should be held accountable. They knew exactly what they're doing by pulling those troops out the way that they did.
Well, it doesn't lay the groundwork for something down the road. You leave all this artillery, you leave all these weapons. I mean, soldiers did their due diligence trying to disarm, but you know, they got
well, you look at it. So look at it this way: whenever you leave munitions, vehicles. I mean, we did in Iraq. I was really upset my last tour in Iraq when we left the fob that I was operating on. We left a lot of stuff behind. I said, who are we leaving this behind from? And then you see on CNN all these insurgents rolling around in these freaking bongo vehicles, these trucks that we left behind. And now they have crew serve weapons mounted on it. They're rolling around with the air, you know, or M16s, not AR-15 platforms, but M16s, actually military grade rifles. Yeah, you really have to wonder, you know, in that was the biggest argument that Trump was talking about. We could have destroyed a lot of it, but we left it. We left in a haste, and the people that were helping us fight, you know, for their freedoms, or we left them to rot. And not only we left them to rot, we left Americans behind, brother. Like, here's the thing about this administration, the news, it gets more fucked up by the day that you forget that, because each day that goes by is even more fucked up than the last day. This administration left Americans to rot in Afghanistan, to fend for them, and then got on TV and lied about it. Talked about, oh yeah, you know, the ones that are still there want to be there. Who the fuck wants to be in Afghanistan when
with no control,
with the coalition pulling out? Like, it's so I guess the main question is, what are my thoughts about Afghanistan?
Yeah.
I think that there should have been an exit strategy. I mean, we can't keep troops over there forever. I mean, it's just, there has to be, and just like in Iraq, there has to be a plan to downsize, but they knew exactly what they were doing. There was no cause for them to pull out overnight.
Did Trump win the election?
Oh, shit.
Mike, did Trump win the election?
So if you know anything about me, you know that I don't support any politician. I don't support Trump. I don't support Biden. I think all politicians are basically corrupt at this point. Again, I'm a constitutionalist. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I don't go behind closed doors, or I don't believe that politicians go behind closed doors to fight for your freedoms and fight for your rights. So if you're asking me, do I believe that Trump, there is a possibility. There's more than enough talk out there, more than enough data out there that could prove that this election was stolen. Do I full-heartedly believe it? Not until I see concrete evidence. Will I run down the street and say Trump's my president? I'd really at this point to give a fuck who's my president. I don't give a shit. I really don't fucking care, because all I care about is my kid's future and my constitutionally protected rights. Y'all can have that argument, and that's the problem. We see everything's so politicized nowadays, all the way down to this agenda around this pandemic. You know, they'll have you believe that a majority of the people that don't want to take the shot are Trumpers, right? That's their freaking playbook. Everything that is a conspiracy theory, or everything that is anti-establishment is Trump. That's the furthest thing from the truth. But that's what they do. That's what government does. That's what mainstream media does. They put out a narrative and they try to divide. That's perfect. If I was a tyrannical government and I wanted to take over, and I wanted to eventually slowly choke the fuck out of you until you submit, I would start arguments 24/7 so you guys could fight with each other. You could fight about these people. It doesn't fucking matter, you know?
We do it every day on social media. I mean, it's a constant thing. The division is bigger than it's ever been.
It is, but that's the general consensus, right? So when we go on social media, when I talk, again, I talk about constitutionally protected rights. I talk about freedom. I talk about patriotism. And I'm not anti-government. I'm just anti this fucking government right now. This is fucking bullshit, man. And more people need to be fucking standing up. But I go on social media, I go on these lives, and the first thing that these little trolls do is they bust out their little playbook, and they want to call me a Trump humper or some shit. I'm like, you're a fucking dillhole, dude. Like, if you knew anything about me, you'd understand that doesn't even affect me. But thanks for playing. Then I kick him right the fuck out of the room. But that's what it is. There's a lot of people that sit behind Trump and they get mad if you talk shit about Trump. Look at it this way. What if Trump was a part of all of this?
I say it all the time, man.
So we're gonna go down that rabbit hole. I know there's gonna be a lot of viewers out there gonna be like, "Fuck you for saying this." Listen, use your critical thinking skills. Leave it open. All I'm saying is, if I was an evil individual or individuals that could control politicians around the world, and I see the greatest nation in the world become everything that we want, right? But we need to change it. We want to control that, because if we control America, we control the world. I'm going to let you know. If we could stomp out freedom in America, everything else is going to fall, right?
Yeah.
But you can't just do it because everyone has guns, and a majority of the people are red, white, and blue toting, gun toting patriots, right? So you can't just come in and be like, "Hey, we're here to fucking strip your shit." You're going to lose every time. There's more of us than them, right? But let's just say, for the case of this conspiracy theory, because it is a theory, you are a corrupt organization and you want to implement total control. How do you do that? How do you get 100% success? And we see this through warfare, especially over the last 100 years, 100 and some change.
I mean, it's internally, right? I mean,
kind of. So you bat for both sides, right? We understand during World War II, Ford was supporting the war effort here. At the same time, he was providing engines for the Nazi war machine over there. Hitler loved Ford. On top of that, some of your oil companies out here, yes, they were providing petroleum for combat operations in theater. And at the same time, they were sending knock additives over to the Nazi Luftwaffe, their Air Force, so that they can keep their planes in the sky. So all I'm saying is at this point, it's very feasible that, number one, Trump was what before a politician? What was he? He was a rich individual, right? He was well known in social circles.
Yeah.
He was a businessman, but he was also what? He was an actor.
Yeah.
He was on TV. He was good in front of the fucking camera. So let's just say, for conspiracy theory, we get an individual, we support him, make him loud about how you need to love this nation, love patriotism, this and that. Because the second you start doing some tyrannical shit, you're going to push a majority of the nation over into that corner. Now, if you're able to control both sides, both narratives, you win. You get what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying right out the bat. So when people turn around, they're like, and they prophesize Trump and they want to talk about, how much he loves his nation. I wouldn't, I don't have anything to argue that. I'm just thinking tactically, there could be a possibility that he is controlled by the same entity that is controlling Biden and everyone else. If you want a certain outcome, you make the people believe that they have the ability to think for themselves, but they don't actually have that ability. So you control the masses with both sides.
Is QAnon legit?
Shit.
Hey, these viewers, like I'm telling you, they got the questions.
They got the rabbit hole question. I'm going to tell you, I don't know. I've seen a lot from QAnon. I've seen a lot about the drops. I read the drops. A lot of stuff corresponds, but it's almost eerie how much it corresponds with everything that's going on nowadays. Knowing that, I also know the federal government. I know the CIA, and I know their ability to control narratives. So, is QAnon real? Somebody's putting the shit out. They've been right about a lot of shit up until this point, but the mainstream media, and again, if you control both sides of both narratives, if you have the mainstream media and the government, basically going against Q, what is that going to do? It's going to push individuals that are seeking the so-called truth to go seek out Q. Now, if you were the federal government, you were an entity such as the NSA, CIA, guess what? You have both sides. You could feed them full of a bunch of fucking fucked up information, and you control both sides. So with that being said, do I believe it's real? I believe somebody's out there pushing it. I believe that it's a good fairy tale at this point, but I don't see anything coming to fruition.
All right, now we got some lighter questions.
You're good. You're good. No. Hey, do me a favor. I gotta grab some water real quick because I've been talking this whole time. I'll be right back.
All right. We're on the Angry American with Mr. Freedomstick, and he's right. He's been talking this whole time. But man, my thoughts on a lot of this stuff. Yeah, you know, we are all like-minded individuals, or you wouldn't be listening to the podcast. You know, we are all like-minded individuals. There are many of us out there from all backgrounds. You know, I think, I think what's coming, man. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep it rolling here.
You're good, man.
So now some lighter questions.
All right, hit me.
Work in progress. Boxers or briefs? I don't even know why it was put in there, but I think this lady has a crush on you, because look through my comments on my videos whenever I tag you in them.
I'm definitely going to do that now. Boxers or briefs? Wow. Both. I don't like just strictly boxers because they're too loose, and I don't like briefs because they're too constrictive.
What's next for Mr. Freedomstick?
I don't know, man. That's a good question. I know that I am following my voice right now, and I believe that my voice is reaching people. I believe that this time being home with my family is everything that I need. But what's next? Obviously I started a podcast.
And what is that, so people can?
Yeah, so you can check me out. Same platform. You can check me out on Spotify. I just dropped it on I think it might be up here real soon on Apple Podcast and Google Podcast and Stitcher here in the next couple of days. I just signed up for them, but you can check me out on Spotify. Just a pinch of Patriot. I dropped my first episode about a week ago, and here in the next couple of days, I'm going to drop my next episode. And the cool thing about these podcasts is I get to say the things that I can't normally say on social media. So definitely check it out.
Where is Kramer?
He's close, bro. Anyone that knows Kramer on social media, some of these platforms, they really hate the guy. The guy's got decades in talk radio. He's highly connected with political individuals. And he's not going anywhere, but anytime he gets up on TikTok or a social media platform, they see his face and they're like, get this guy out of here. It's because they're afraid of him. They're afraid of his voice. So, and they're afraid about what he's speaking, but he ain't going anywhere. I talk to him all the time. So
good. Well, man, I won't keep you much longer. I said an hour, but it's been an hour and 42 minutes.
That's how we do it, man. I can talk. And I'm going to tell you, man, if you have any listeners out there and you guys don't know anything about survival, or you don't know where to start, I do have my survival workshop. I'm going to do a plug here real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have my survival workshop that I put together. It's 25 years in the making. Obviously, all my experience in the military, my experience in EMS and law enforcement. I get hit up all the time. People ask me what I should be doing. How should I prepare? What should I get? Do's and don'ts. How to build an effective plan, tactics. So I decided to do the damn thing. So what I did is I built a program. I built a workshop. It's going to be a 2-hour workshop, all virtual. You can show up in your underwear. The only person you have to look at is my ugly face. You don't have to worry about showing yours if you don't want. And I'm going to be putting out a lot of jam-packed information over 2 hours. The registration for this workshop, if you go to TikTok, you hit my main account, which is Mr. Freedom Branch, or you hit up my backup account, Mr. Freedomstick 5.0. So you spell that out, MISTER, Mr. Freedomstick, all one word, 5.0 all together. You will see the link in my bio.
Send me the link to that, and I will put it on this podcast as well when I post it on YouTube. Okay.
Most definite. My wife was telling me that the virtual seats are filling up quick, but don't be afraid to try to register now. And then on top of that, if this is a success, this is where we're going. You ask me what I'm doing. This is the route I'm going. I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to use my knowledge and my experience to help other like-minded individuals understand what is truly going on in the world and how to prepare themselves and disconnect themselves from the government so they could be self-sustaining and they could use their critical thinking skills and prepare for anything possibly right around the corner.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Like I said,
Yeah, dude, you're amazing. Like I said, I appreciate you let me come on here and bump my gums.
The first guest, man. You're the first guest.
Hey, man, doing it up. I mean, this, you're probably gonna have some pretty killer guests, man. But this is usually pretty epic. When I get on, this is probably like, I don't know, it's probably like my 10th or 12th podcast in the last couple of weeks. But great format, brother. Great format.
I gotta say it before we go because I've said it to you before, and you're like, nah.
What's up?
You know, political office may not be. I mean, it's true. We need people that are well-rounded, common sense, American patriots to step up. And I tell people all the time, do it in your community. You know, do it locally. At some point, you know, if you throw shit at a wall, so many times it's going to eventually stick. Absolutely.
So if you're asking me why don't I get into politics, man, I'll leave you with this one. I've never been a politician, dude. I'm a warrior, man. I have a warrior's heart. I have a warrior like mindset.
But you said you had one foot in the grave. I mean, that's what you said. I heard it.
Correct. No, definite, correct. But to take local office, I think that if something actually happened, I'd be needed elsewhere. I think that my community could use me in other means in regards to my experience and knowledge. Me going political at this point, number one, my opponents would eat me up. They would check my videos out. They would tear apart any podcasts I've been on and be like, look at this fucking guy.
If Donald Trump became president of the United States.
Well, they didn't have anything on him until he became president. Everyone was supporting, and think about this, everyone supported that guy until he became the president.
Yeah.
And, if I went local and I was actually thinking about the next our county sheriff's election. I was thinking about actually dropping my bid in there. And, because I'm a constitutionalist, man. And people don't understand about law enforcement, right? So your sheriff in your county is your premier law enforcement officer. Your sheriff could tell the federal government where to go and how the fuck to get there. 2, your local police departments, yes, they are run by the municipality, but guess what? Your police chief is not an elected official. Okay. On top of that, the sheriff could basically of a county could strip a department at any given time their law enforcement capabilities in his county. The coolest thing that I ever heard was we had an incident, and I'm trying to think what state it was in. It was in the Southwest, and I read about this county sheriff. I guess FBI task force was setting up an operation. Number one, the federal government, federal entities cannot conduct operations against Americans without due process and cause for an operation. They can't just go in and start surveillance on Americans. That's not how that works. Checks and balances, right? So this FBI team started setting up. They took over some kind of plot of land, and there was a building there, this and that. Well, people started getting worried, and they started seeing these vehicles, and they brought up to their local sheriff. They're like, hey, I think the FBI is setting up and they're conducting operations in your backyard. Again, what people don't understand is unless it's a federal case, unless you have federal jurisdiction, the FBI falls under the badge of the sheriff. They have no jurisdiction. And that's, here's the problem we have nowadays. We have all these cool shows out, right? We have the FBI, right? We got LAPD. We got all these shows out there that totally misconstrue the Constitution, who has the right to do what, right? The FBI can't just show up somewhere and conduct operations against American civilians. It has to be a federal fucking matter. Okay. And the issue with this was they were putting together plans, and they were about to conduct an operation. And the local sheriff found out about it. He rolled up. Agent, from what I understood, the lead agent in charge tried to be all cool, walk out and try to tell him what time was. And the sheriff's like, listen, buddy, if you're not out of here in fucking 12 hours to pack your shit up, I'll have you all arrested. This is my county. You don't have jurisdiction here. When you operate here, number one, you operate under my badge. And 2, you fucking ask me. You don't make me come to you. And I was like, wow. But people don't understand. The sheriff is the premier law enforcement officer in each county. And he is the elected official by the people. The city can't strip him of his duties. All these corrupt mayors, and you can't touch a fucking sheriff, dude. So
You got my vote, man. I'll tell you that.
I just, the sheriff that where we live, he's in some hot water right now. And people ask me, what would you do? And I said, I have the law enforcement background. It is an elected official's job, and I would have to meet the requirements, which, not worried about. But you probably have a lot of deputies that are trying to come up through the ranks and stuff like that. And can only imagine.
But none of them are Mr. Freedomstick.
Yeah, but think about how that would like boil over. People be like, this motherfucker is on, like, he's got, so many followers on TikTok, this and that, and he's on social media where he's bumping his gun. Yeah, he's a constitutionalist, but at the end of the day, he's more of a mouthpiece. But I don't know, man. I really don't know. But I know one thing. I know what's in my heart, and I know what's in my mind. And I'm going to tell you, we're about to go through some troubling times. And if you don't have anyone in your life that you could turn to that has experience and knowledge, you might want to start looking for that person.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you for being here, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, and God bless you. God bless each and every one of you that's listening as well. So
I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you.
Well, there it is, Mr. Freedomstick, the first guest I've ever had on the podcast. Good podcast, yeah. A lot of information out there. Here's my thought, all right? I've been coming on here 2 years, and I've been saying a lot of the same things that you heard here today. We're all individuals, we're all different, but at the end of the day, we want just a few basic things. We want to live our lives the way we want to live them, within the confines of the law, of course. We want to be left the hell alone, and we want the right to happiness and freedom. These are God-given rights. These aren't just talking points. It's not a dream. Every day that passes, we get closer and closer and closer to that one world governance. I don't care what you say. You can call me a conspiracy theorist. You can call me whatever the hell you want. I'm seeing it with my own eyes. I'm living it in my daily life. Who would have ever thought that somebody would be forced out of their own business because of their stance, because of their view, because of their goddamn opinion? This is the thing that keeps me up at night. I'm not able to provide today for my family the way I was 6 months ago. Why? Because I saw something that wasn't right, and I thought it best to tell the truth. Your whole life you're being told, tell the truth, don't lie, tell the truth. Then when you do, as an adult, you're punished. That was a punishment. That was a wake-up call. Well, I'm going to flip it back to them. Here's your wake-up call. There are people out there that don't give a shit what it is you think you can do. Run me through the mud, run me amok, I don't care. At the end of the day, I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. Quote me on that. I appreciate each and every one of you for listening. We're going to do this again. We're going to go a different realm. I'm going to try and have Zach Rector. He's a TikTok cryptocurrency guy on. The reason being, I know you're thinking cryptocurrency, what the hell? The reason being, you heard Charles Schwab, you heard the World Economic Forum, you heard the Great Reset, you heard these phrases. CBDC, central bank digital currency, cryptocurrency, virtual wallets. You heard all of this. This isn't just talking points. This isn't a conspiracy. This isn't, futuristic or make-believe. This is here now. And as I bring these guests on and we knock this down one by one, you're going to see. These are dominoes that have been set into place. They have finished setting the table and started knocking them down. And we are watching them fall one by one. If you don't listen, if you don't heed what you hear here and elsewhere on social media, one of these days you're going to wake up and this country will be unrecognizable, and it is already unrecognizable. But I'm talking a complete governance of every aspect of your life. I want to thank Mr. Freedomstick for being here. I want to apologize if this is a little raw. I'm used to a format of just myself. But I wanted to bring this to you. I wanted you to hear what this man had to say. He's the real deal. He's the real deal. I'm not putting slouches on here. I'm not trying to fill time. I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to save this nation. Until next time.
So enigmatic and charismatic, gotta live static, gotta get at it, never pragmatic, cause we live tragic. I can't live average, to be alive's magic. Turn it up in the back cause I'm grabbing everything I want, get in my way and I'm stabbing. I'll be moving crowds till I'm 6 feet napping. They need another fix, hooked on like an addict. I got my eyes on the prize and exchanging lives. I wanna live till I die, make a difference right. I wanna give those in need a reason to fight. I wanna live every day like it's my last night. I wanna change how we play the game, rearrange all the pieces till they say my name, push an agenda against doing what they say. I wanna stand up and start a revolution. I wanna start a revolution. I wanna start a revolution.